Well, 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 you have finally got here. You are listening to the Erskine Music Podcast. Here, by popular demand, we discuss life, culture, Christ, and of course, music. These half-hour broadcasts are perfect for a commute, coffee time, chat, or any other gap in your schedule where you want to put great content. So without further ado, let's join the conversation today, already in progress.
All right, so let's do this. I've got an article that I want to read, and then I've got a couple of sound bites. Let's get to some of the sound bites first. This is our top story today, the Dove Awards, and some of the nonsense that was going on with the Dove Awards this year. All right, so this is a Christian News affiliate here that is interviewing John Cooper, and all the show notes for today, the Sermon Jam video of Alistair Begg, all the stuff that I'm going to be reading and or reporting on, it will be in the show notes for today. So if you want to go back and see where I got any of this information from, it'll be from there. But let's get to John Cooper first, because I've got some comments and some things that he says that I think I want to comment on.
Discuss this. Frontman for the Grammy-nominated Christian rock band Skillet, host of the Cooper Stuff podcast, and author of the upcoming book, Wimpy, Weak, and Woke.
I've not read that book, but now that somebody's actually talking crazy like I talk on this show, I'm going to see if he's going to get in trouble for talking crazy, because I talk crazy like that all the time, but he's written a book about it, and so I've heard a lot of people congratulate him and pat him on the back. We're going to see if they're going to be patting me on the back also when I'm saying some of these things.
John, thank you so much for being with us today. It's an honor to have you.
Oh, it's great to be with you, Allison. Thank you.
Thank you. So, John, can you explain to us why the Dove Awards, ultimately the Christian version of the Grammys, would host someone who's part of the Alphabet Mafia? I mean...
Okay. A couple things. Oh, you guys know that I have a... if you watched any of the seasons prior to this, you guys know that when I was in college playing basketball and knew that the Lord had called me to ministry and that I was going to be going to seminary, I had to get some kind of degree. And I talked to a professor. I don't know if he's a Christian or not, but he said, if you're going to talk to people, then get a speech degree. Sounds good to me. I'm just trying to get up out of here so I can go work on my master's degree. And he said, you'll get a communications degree, because I feel like media platforms, things, that'll be something that you'll probably want to do in ministry. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. So I ended up getting a communications degree. And one of the courses that I had to study was editorial and broadcasting classes. And at one point I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. And so, you know, there's editorializing, there's setting a particular tone in a story, or just questioning somebody and receiving answers and remaining somewhat neutral. That is not what this lady is. And so it always kind of makes me go, she would have got a bad grade in my class, but this is apparently what they do on this news station, this news channel. I'm going to let that go, but you just need to know coming into this, very biased as she's asking some of these questions, but let John Cooper cook a little bit.
I just talked to a pastor yesterday about how religious leaders, including the Pope, are compromising with other faiths and religions, which the Bible calls false gods. How can we even begin to consider compromising with this lifestyle as Christians?
Yeah, great. Well, I got some good news and some bad news. The good news is this. We know that God promises if we repent, cry out to God, he will heal our land. The bad news is, as everybody knows, America really is on the verge of destruction. And I believe that destruction is because the Christian church ain't acting like the Christian church. All right. So I've been ringing this bell in Christian music for a long time. There is a lot of compromise in Christian music, just like there's a lot of compromise in Christianity in general. But I want to be very, very fair.
Okay, before he gets to his note about the Dove Awards, let's just examine the statement that he made there. The Christian circles, music circles, compromised. Christian church, compromised. You know, I could take issue with that to some extent. Some things he's saying, I'm saying, but his vantage point for seeing some of these things is probably a little different than my vantage point. I'm seeing sometimes small churches, sometimes very small churches, sometimes very small groups of Christians who are gathering together And by and large, the groups that are small, that are still gathering together, are not compromised. It's just, and it's not that he's wrong to say what he's saying, because I can see in some of the bigger places where there's been some mission drift that's taken place, and I can see where there's some compromise that has taken place. And I kind of have a issue with mega churches and discipleship and kind of thinking that through. And sometimes they don't think that through. And so that's kind of the issue that I have with that. But let's just unpack for just a second compromise in the United States of America. You know, George Barna always comes up with these Pew Research, and Pew Research is different than George Barna, but they come up with metrics, I guess, from interviewing people, questionnaires, surveys, to figure out what is the spiritual climate in the United States of America. And I don't think anybody would be willing to say we are in a good place spiritually. You see a lot of mental health issues that are there. You see a lot of dropout, churches that are closing their doors. You see a lot of pastors who are getting out of the pastorate. And so we know that there's an issue that is going on there. Now, how we quantify that as a good thing or a bad thing, we can talk about that down the line. But calling out the Christian church is something that I have done before. Calling out the lukewarm nature of Christian music is something that I've done before. And I think ringing that bell, there's nothing wrong with that. However, my point in bringing all this up, and you guys jump in the comment section and let me know what you think, but my point in bringing all of this up today is I could easily piggyback on John Cooper and say, man, he's the fall guy. He's the one who said this. I'm just going to rubber stamp what he says, stamp it, and then go. Instead of doing that today, I'm going to say, John Cooper, is he listening to me today? I don't know if he's listening to me today. Send this broadcast to him and let him know. John Cooper, I want to know personally what you are doing to combat the issue that you see. You see, about 15 years or so ago, I used to go by virtue of K-Love's to Celebrate Freedom. It was down in Dallas. I used to take youth groups to that every year. I was exposed to some of the great Christian music artists of that era and that day. And I would stand in a field all day long and I'd listen to concert after concert after concert, Celebrate Freedom. And so I had a keen interest in Christian contemporary music, how the sauce was made, what the artists were talking about, the platforms that they had, and all the different lights and drama that was associated with the Christian music festivals of that day and continue on. So I've been a part of some of those. My question has always been in reference to the world and what the world is presenting as godless, antichrist, and sometimes very harmful music, depending on what genre it is. The response as a Christian that I cannot have, I can have a lot of responses, but one that I cannot have is to just bury myself in isolation and say, well, the world, you guys go to hell. Just go to hell because I want to be left alone and I just want to do my own thing. That is not a Christian response that nor do I believe any of you can have. And so my response to that observation has been, well, I'll start writing songs that I think people need to hear. I'll start doing things, preaching and teaching in such a way that it brings encouragement to the body. If Christian music is weak, I want to try to provide at least a little bit of strength to it. If the Christian church is weak, then I want to provide at least a little bit of strength to it so far as the Lord would give me ability. And so I would just ask up front. And if John Cooper is watching this broadcast today, he can message me privately or he can message me on this show. He can drop in the show if he wants to, except I'm not live right now. And just let me know, what are you doing? What are you doing to combat the issue? Now, I think the note that he gives right here in relationship to the Dove Award is very fair and should be heard, because I've got friends that are a part of the Gospel Music Association, and they need to know that we all understand the nature of and complexity of some of these issues.
I don't think that the Doves actually hosted them. I don't think they invited them. I don't think they approved of it. I think there's just tickets. Anybody can get tickets and come. So I want to say that about the Doves. I don't think that's what's going on. However, the industry is not doing a good job on clarity on what is it that we are willing to say is okay and what we are willing to say that's actually not okay. And it's time for us to kind of separate ways. And I say that because as we speak, some of the biggest Christian worship singers in the world, as we speak, have posted things that are publicly pro-choice. They've publicized candidates who are pro-choice, pro-abortion, sexual stuff on socials. We've seen lots of confirming.
He's looking at something there. I really wish he would start calling out some names. Some of the biggest Christian music artists, some of the biggest Christian platforms. Who are you talking about there? You want to call those names out? You want to let people know that what they're listening to on the radio, there's a lot of compromise in that. Oh, but the music sounds so good. Oh, but their voice is so good. Oh, but the way that is mixed sounds so good. I don't think I'm talking to John. And I don't think John is just talking about the Dove Awards. I think that there's something fundamental and intrinsic within us that needs to cry out to God. Crucified with Christ. See, I was going somewhere all the time with that. Crucified with Christ means that there's some things in this life and things in this world, things in our own heart that must die in order for us to be identified in Christ Jesus.
I'd say confusing, and or affirming stances on LGBT from worship leaders, pro BLM people, things like that. In my new book, I even give a few names. One of the ones I found the most egregious is a worship singer who chastised.
We'll call his name out. You put his name in your book. And hopefully in the calling out of names, there has been some, because he would have the ability to do this more so than I would, but there is some reaching out to this artist or said artist with the opportunity for them to repent.
Christians for calling quote unquote Leah Thomas, who is a trans identifying biological male swimmer. He said, if you call him a man, you are being hateful. God is going to judge you for this. So what you're dealing with right now is the fact that a lot of Christian musicians, the industry, are so very confused about what the Bible says. And I just want to say to that worship artist, actually, you're the one being hateful by confusing the world. You're the one being hateful by rejecting God's created order and calling righteous something that is righteous, wickedness, and wickedness something that's righteous. Isaiah warns us of this. Woe to those who trade good for evil and evil for good. We have a lot of work we need to do in the industry.
Well, that certainly gives a sense of why people enjoy this show. Very engaging, very heartfelt. We will return to the conversation in a few moments, but first, let's thank our sponsors and you for all your awesome support. Moody Radio's Dawn and Steve Morning Show, Life Action Ministries, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and Holt International. Thanks so much to our partners who make such a difference.
Thanks, Jason. This is Dawn.
And this is Steve of Dawn and Steve in the Morning on Moody Radio. You can find us online at donandsteve.org, or you can listen through the Moody Radio app.
And as friends of the Erskine Music Show, we always enjoy the variety of topics our friend has on his show.
So, on behalf of our show, thanks, Erskine, for bringing great Christ-centered topics to the people.
All right, let's get back to the show. This is where it gets good.
So here's what we got. There's a lot of compromise in Christian music, or at least some compromise, as he would call it out in this book. And rightly does he have a platform that I think speaks to that issue. And then also compromise within the church. You guys know, if you've watched the show, that some of the same things that he sees and some of the same things that he says, I have said before. So what is my rationale? Is it just a fight? Or do I provide some kind of counterbalance, or at least what I would think would be a faithful substitute for whatever that is? Here's this over here. And since I have been at times very critical of things that have gone on in churches, church leadership, church mentality, mission drift, and things of that nature, as it relates to the church, then become a church planter. That's what we did 3 years ago. We planted House Church in Nashville, and we've continued to go forward. I appreciated our devotion today. It was Alistair Begg, one of my favorite guys. But Alistair Begg talking about coming down from the pulpit, having preached with all of your strength and conveyed the message of God clearly, and feeling like that was inadequate because people by and large hear it and it's like, oh, that was a good message. If it was in any shape or form or fashion faithfully delivered, you could put sentences back to back. But how life-changing and how life-altering. We know the word won't return void, and so we stand up and we deliver. But I would just say, if you're a preacher and you've never felt that sense of your inadequacy, then you've probably never preached a message. And so, again, not just to John, but to everybody that's out there. It's so easy. This is easy. This is clickbait. This is just, I mean, we should get thousands of views just by the title alone. But it's easy to criticize people and to dunk on people. What are we doing as a result? The substitute in our lives. What are we doing instead of those things? What are we doing to combat those things? What are we doing as an alternative to those things? What are we doing in reaching out in response to those things?
That is a fantastic point. We sure do.
She gets on my nerves.
And I really just...
And I know her parents, you know, if you're watching this today, she probably got on your nerves too. Doggone it.
Fight.
She's editorializing when she should just be asking him questions. And she takes up most of his time with her commentary, which is bad news reporting. She's an anchor and she should not be doing that. She's on my nerves.
Pray that Christians continue to stand firm on biblical core issues instead of watering them down to the point where there's virtually no difference between us and the world. I mean, that is what we are called to do. So
what you're actually called to do is just ask him questions and then prompt him.
I'm grateful that you're here to discuss that. I think it's so important to represent Jesus, especially now in this world full of darkness. Now, you mentioned many of the Christian bands and artists today are somehow okay with the worldly.
Hold up, where you get many from? We know that there are some. There's always some. And there might be more than a few. But here's another thing that gets on my nerves when I have to say this again. Can we just say this real quick? There are many, many, many independent artists that are out there and whom I know personally have not compromised and will not compromise. There are promoters out there who have not compromised and will not compromise. And let me be absolutely clear about this. Their names are not out there, but their platforms and the small platforms that they have, myself included, rock solid with regards to who Christ is, what the gospel is, what the church is, a message of hope, a message of deliverance. And just because you don't see us, young lady, talking to you now, young lady, I don't even know what her name is. Reach out to her and be like, hey, quit editorializing. You're going to get an F in the class. And two, young lady, don't assume that just because you don't see it, that it's not happening. So independent artists, let's keep rocking out there.
Traits that are infiltrating Christian worship music. Don't you think there should be a greater show of Christian artists standing strong in their convictions, calling this evil out? I mean, why aren't we?
There already are.
Seeing more people rising up during this amid what's currently happening? Shouldn't there be more artists and bands and musicians standing up and speaking out against this?
Yeah.
Don't answer that question. You fire her up. Fire her butt up. And be like, first of all, young lady, you don't even know all the Christian bands that are out there and the Christian artists that are out there. And so calm the heck down. And notice I haven't cussed one single time this season. Calm the heck down, lady, because there are plenty of righteous brothers and sisters who are out there who are doing the work of the Lord. Just when you think there are none, the Lord has always got a reservation, a reserve, I should say, a reserve of those artists who are out there. And so, but anyway, I'm gonna let him answer the question.
I really think that there should be. I understand sometimes why there's not. So my upcoming book that you already mentioned is called Wimpy, Weak, and Woke. That's what we're dealing with. We are dealing with a culture that is wimpy and a church that is wimpy, weak, and woke. And people can pre-order that on my website, johnlcooper.com.
I'd be really interested. Okay, let's give him tags for his book because I'd be really interested to read this book. Do you guys want me to read this book and then do a book review on it? Because I feel like it's going to get me fired up. So drop in the comment section if you want me to read this book. I'll get the book, or you guys can get it for me, or he can send it to me. If you're watching this, John, you can send me a copy of the book and I'll read it for you. And I will do because I don't work for you and you don't work for me. I'll give you as unbiased a report on that book as you will find. I don't know when these people are reporting on these books and then giving the reviews for the books. They're either a close friend or associate, or they work for the publishing company, or it's hard to get an unbiased review these days. But if I get a copy of that book, I will give you an unbiased view because there's a little bit of overspeak that's going on here. And Cooper's large platform on the stage, persona, presentation, and culture that he lives in is completely different ecosystem. And so I do want to make sure that we are aware of that as we're watching the show today. He may be seeing some things that I totally do not see, but I try to keep my ear to the track. And I'm not saying that every artist out there is just doing what they're supposed to. If they're small artists, then you can trust them. No. Don't hear me say that. We got to always go back to scripture, and we got to always go back and test the things of God.
Here's what it means to be wimpy and woke. It is the fact that we recognize, and this is true, that we need to be compassionate to people who do not agree with us. We need to love people that do not agree with us. We need to love people that don't agree with biblical sexual ethics. What makes you wimpy and weak is when you actually don't want to tell somebody the truth because you think it's more important to be polite.
All right. So yeah, you guys are out of here. Yeah, out of here. Let's get back to the studio. All right, I got to get this other video in real quick, like today. But Rebecca George wants to come by and say hello. You guys say hello to Rebecca.
Hey friends, I'm Rebecca George, author of Do the Thing, Gospel-Centered Goals, Gumption, and Grace for the Go-Getter Girl, and you are listening to the Erskine Music Show.
All right, let's get this going. This is Derek Webb. Derek Webb himself, the man. Well, I'm going to give him that respect biologically because he's a man, but listen, I don't comment on a lot of these things, and I try to keep Derek Webb's name out of my mouth as often as possible because he is there's people that I respect. There's non-believers that I tremendously respect because I can see in their lostness a mutual respect. You know, we come to the table with respect. They don't do or say certain things because they could diametrically be opposed to what it is that I believe about a certain thing, but they don't trounce on Christianity. There may be an idea that they disagree with, and we can talk about those things, but they don't trounce on Christianity and make a mockery of Christianity for the sake of their own publicity. For people who do that, perhaps I haven't been there, and I'm not going there. Perhaps there's a place in hell reserved for those clowns that would make such a mockery of Christ by virtue of their very lives and their very words that you understand the nature of the imprecatory Psalms. Now, obviously, I could and should, and we should all be praying for Derek Webb and his regeneration. But to me, he's probably one of the scourges of the earth, just because his sagacity with media and his ability to use his platform, we want to call that, of Christianity to bash Christianity is one of the most ironic things people let him get away with. And so I've said my piece. I'm gonna keep his name out of my mouth because I don't really want to say his name. I don't really have anything good to say about this man. I'm gonna give him the respect of calling him a man, but I'm gonna let this go. Let it roll.
I wear a dress to the Dove Awards. As a cis, straight, white man, I walk into a room like that, and any room with an incredible amount of advantage and privilege. If I'm attending as an ally of friends and colleagues.
And so like you would say, why would you play him on your show? Because I want you guys to hear the nonsense that is coming out of his mouth. I want you to see he and his friends dressed up at the Dove Awards, what they're doing there. And so Indie Thinker is the one who first put this out. And I think he did a great job of editing this. And I just want you to hear his voice. I just want you to be provoked a little bit, stirred to pray for, stirred to evangelize more, stirred to do whatever God calls you to do more, because you see and know that there are people who are out there who use their ginormous platforms associated with Christianity to do these kind of things. And
Well, you probably
kind of
already know that when you hear that sound, there's music on the way. After all, this is kind of a music show. Sit back and enjoy. All the music can be easily found on your favorite digital distribution channels. Turn up the volume and here we go.
I'm Joe Guerra. Thanks for watching the Erskine Music Show. And thanks to you, my buddy Erskine, for having me on here to share a little bit. You know, me and Erskine, we go way back. We've done some tours together. We've sang a lot of songs together. And we've done some life together as people that do music ministry. You know, to kind of sum up in a nutshell what I'm about, you know, I just like to tell people, man, I love using music to share truth and to help inspire people to be who God made them to be and to live out the life God's called them to the fullest. And yeah, this song that I just released, Living for Today, which is playing in the background, is exactly that. It's my hope that it's an encouragement to you to live as God intended us. And you know, we all have times when we get knocked down, where we wonder, man, is anything gonna go right? We all have times where we worry, and that's kind of the main crux of this song is dealing with worry and the crippling effect that can have. And we need to release our worries in trust to God so that we can take hold of all that He has for us in this moment, in this day. You know, sometimes I can let my worries about tomorrow keep me frozen, stuck, and not actually taking steps forward in what He's called me to. In the same way, I can let memories of past mistakes or past times when things have fallen apart cause me to question, man, am I cut out for this? Do I have what it takes? Can I really fulfill God's purposes for me? You know, if I'm just blatantly honest, you know, I deal with that sometimes. And there's a few passages that came to mind as I was, you know, writing this song, recording it. And one of those is from Philippians 4:6, where it says, "Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus."
Everyone gets knocked down to the ground sometimes. Everyone has days when nothing seems to go right. We all lose hope, lose the strength to try. Just don't lose faith. My God can make a way. Whoa there, wait a minute, this moment's a gift, so I'll make the most of what's in front of me. Yeah, I won't worry about tomorrow. I've got joy that's here to stay. I'm living for today. Yeah, I'll take the next step, trusting His plan. I know He's making my path straight. Whatever comes my way, I'm living for today. Of change can stir up doubt in the mind. They'll leave us wondering how we'll ever get by. Don't let it keep you from what's right before your eyes. Don't forget, my God can provide. Whoa there, wait a minute, this moment's a gift, so I'll make the most of what's in front of me. Yeah, I won't worry about tomorrow. I've got joy that's here to stay. I'm living for today. Yeah, I'll take the next step, trusting His plan. I know He's making my path straight. Whatever comes my way, I'm living for today. I'm backing up. I know the future's in strong hands, so I'll let go and trust. No, I don't always understand, but I know He does. My God's got everything I need. I won't worry about tomorrow. I've got joy that's here to stay. I'm living for today. I'll take the next step, trusting His plan. My path straight. Whatever comes my way, I'm living for today. Whatever comes my way, I'm living for today. I'm living for today.
All right. Let's get back to the show. This is where it gets good.
I should do everything possible to surrender that privilege at the door. If the way you look at my loved ones isn't the way you look at me, I'm not truly standing with them. It's like Stan Mitchell says, if you claim to be someone's ally but aren't getting hit by the stones thrown at them, you aren't standing close enough.
Why? Okay. Well, that's Indie Thinker out there, and you guys can see that in its totality. I'm taking that off the screen. Get that junk off the screen. All right. We got a couple things that we need to do. We need to play some Erskine music. And that should say our drag queens taking over the Christian Music Awards shows. Re-drag queens. So yeah, questions down at the bottom there that you guys can comment on. What do you guys think about what's going on in this conversation that we're having so far? All right, real quick, because I got a hard stop today. I got a hard stop today. Let me just read this real quick and then make a quick commentary. And then I'm playing music on the way out the door today. Sorry, it's a little bit shorter, but let's go with this. This is the Baptist Press. And according to the BaptistNews.com, a cursory perusal of the GMA's procedure and policies manual excludes a whiff of self-congratulatory pomp. According to the document, categories like Song of the Year and Songwriter of the Year are based on sales, airplay, and church performances during the eligibility period. The inherent nature of these criteria raises questions about the inclusivity of the awards and how much Christendom is truly represented by these markers. Listen, the BaptistNews.com has got a very liberal slant. So for Flamey Grant, the dude look like a lady. Flamey Grant, and a take on Amy Grant, and whom, if you're going to take somebody's name that is a compromiser in Christian music, Flamey Grant and Amy Grant, that's actually brilliant marketing. But according to the article by Kelsey Kramer and McGinnis in Christianity Today, the core audience of Christian music skews conservative and is likely to hold traditional stances on marriage. And the reality that makes up the airplay is exclusive of queer Christian artist Similar, who was asked K-Love via social media to play the song Faith, requested and did not get acknowledged by K-Love Radio, and who did not respond to the request for a comment. Church performances are another limiting gauge. And this article goes on to say, and you can see this article in its entirety, and I wish I had time to read it, but essentially it's going on to say, here's the metrics of how the GMA comes up with who gets selected for these awards. They want awards. They want to be acknowledged. They want to be seen. And so I'll just say this really quickly. There's this thing, and it's almost hilarious. I know I'm about to run out of time, but there's this thing, and it's hilarious, that happens in Christian music, and it's called the Nashville No. You meet somebody, it's like, hey, we should get coffee sometime. Oh, yeah, we should definitely do that. Hey, I'll invite you to this thing. You'll never hear from them. It's called the Nashville No. And I'm getting ready to go. It's called the Nashville No. They have given Flamey Grant, Similar, Derek Webb, and all these guys the Nashville No. It's not that they didn't hear you. It's just that they don't want to comment on it because they don't want to do it. They don't want to have to tell you no. So they're just not going to say anything to you. And at times I've been critical of the Nashville No. Living here in Nashville, home studios, here we are. I've been critical of the Nashville No. But on this particular occasion, I can see why the Nashville No is a very appropriate response. I'm just doing this because I've been made aware of it, but you won't see multiple broadcasts and shows in the Erskine Music Show that are devoted to this nonsense. It was what it was. It was a spectacle. They were trying to get attention, and they would love it if YouTubers would just go crazy talking about it because it would elevate their brand. That's the insidious nature of the algorithm that's out there. The more we talk about it, whether it's good or bad, we talked about it, and so therefore more people get a chance to see it. And so it's probably good that I have to go now. But before I go, I did want to show a couple of pictures from the Dove Awards just to let you guys know that it was an incredible evening, incredible event. A lot of cool artists that were there. And I actually think that Christian music, where it's at these days, is kind of the best place that I've ever seen it myself, in my humble opinion. And so, yeah, some really cool things happened this year, and I didn't want these kind of things to be overshadowed. Brandon Lake, Artist of the Year. And so really great to see the success of these artists, to be able to comprehend and to hear their music. And I did want to say to the folks who are at GMA, your non-response was, I think, the best response. Let me be clear about that. Non-response was the best response. And for the artists that were there, I hope that this in no way overshadows the accomplishments and the hard work that you put into. One of those artists, a couple of those artists, I was with this last weekend, in the form of Cindy Morgan, who had arranged the album, inspirational album of the year, Point of Grace's album, and the gals from Point of Grace, and who at some point we hope to have on our show. Yeah, just great things that are going on there. And so I didn't want those things to be overshadowed with some of the nonsense that took place at the Dove Awards this year.
We have come to the end of this episode. Don't miss a final word from Erskine.
Hey guys, tell your friends about this show. And as always, I look forward to your interactions. Please contact us as you are able. We love to hear from you. Okay, friends, let's go and make a difference.